Welcome to the 37th Organic Farming Conference. How many people have been here for more than 10 years? 5 to 10? 0 to 5? Right on. Welcome, everyone. I did say more than 10, right? Yeah. I'm Clare Hintz. I am the board president. I am thrilled that you have gathered here in La Crosse with us. This is such an important moment for us to come together as an organic movement. Please talk with each other about what that means to you. Talk to us, the board and the staff and the presenters, about what that means to you as we go through this weekend. The board is in charge of guiding the big picture direction of the Marbleseed organization. We come from most states here in the Midwest. We come from most of the sectors in organic agriculture. And so we are here to listen to your experiences. We want to know from you what you need from this community in this moment in time. And so please reach out to us as you see us throughout the conference. We're here to listen and to learn from you and to gain inspiration as we all go forward. So board, do you want to stand up here? And I won't introduce everybody individually, but look for them in the crowd. Everybody's got a black tag on. I want to also introduce the Marbleseed staff who could be in the room right now. Most people are running around doing work, but for the Marbleseed staff, please stand. Lori, our executive director, and some of the staff. They have worked tirelessly and in great detail to bring you this event this weekend. And we all know it's tumultuous times. They have worked very hard to weather the ambiguity of our moment. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. Marbleseed, as an organization committed to the regeneration of the geography known as the Upper Midwestern United States through organic farming practices, owes gratitude and acknowledgement to the indigenous communities who have long stewarded this land that we now all share. This statement is made within the context of a present where tribal communities are continuing to struggle for sovereignty in their ways of hunting, fishing, gathering, and farming. Marbleseed comes to the first citizens of Turtle Island, North America, offering respect and a deep appreciation for their knowledge of all the plants, animals, trees, soils, and medicine this region supports. We hold curiosity and a desire to learn from tribal partners, to be accountable for our actions, and to be a true partner in healing the land so that all ecosystems, natural communities, and species may thrive. Wisconsin, the primary place of Marbleseed programming and operations, is home to 11 federally recognized tribal nations: Bad River Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, Ho-Chunk Nation, Lecoutere Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, Lac de Flambeau Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, Menominee Tribe of Wisconsin, Oneida Nation, Forest County Potawatomi, Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, St. Croix Chippewa, Sokogan Chippewa or Mole Lake, and Stockbridge Munsee. Our hope is that members of the Marbleseed community will join us in this journey to learn from, partner with, pay respect to, and uphold the knowledge of indigenous peoples of this region. I would like now to introduce one of our speakers for right now, Senator Brad Pfaff from Wisconsin. We're very happy to have Wisconsin State Senator Brad Pfaff with us tonight. He has held this position since 2021. Senator Pfaff served in senior positions with the U.S. Department of Agriculture Farm Service Agency in the Obama administration, and most recently as the Secretary Designee of the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. He was raised on a family farm in this area, and his father served on the La Crosse County Board of Supervisors for 20 years. Let's welcome him.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, thank you, Claire, and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the beautiful rolling hills, coulees, and valleys of the Driftless region, a region that my family has called home since they first came to this country in the mid-1800s. I want to be absolutely clear with you tonight as we begin this great conference. Food is more than just a commodity. Right, Sue? Food is more than just a commodity. And we need to make sure that we remind ourselves and everyone else about that. I think we all recognize the fact that we want to do more in order to connect consumers with the farmers that grow the food. We want to work together to make sure that people recognize the food that they have on their plate, that they are feeding themselves and their family members and their loved ones, that came from the hard work, dedication, and resilience of the family farmers who produce that food. That is very important, and we need to be able to do that. We also need to recognize the fact that what we have here in western Wisconsin, an area that I'm so proud to represent, is we have a topography, a rolling landscape that I would argue is second to none. The valleys, the coulees, the creeks and the streams, it's just absolutely magnificent. And I'll tell you, you take a drive in this area, and I surely hope you do. I hope you spend some time outside, not just here in the La Crosse Center, in the convention hall, but take a drive. And I'll tell you, around every corner, you will see something that I think is just marvelous, and that is landscape. That is God's beauty. It is a painting that has been done, and it's marvelous. It is absolutely marvelous. So as a Wisconsin State Senator, I have served in my role since 2021. I won an election in 2020. Previous to that, as was mentioned, I had the opportunity to be at our State Department of Agriculture. I spent years at the U.S. Department of Agriculture before that. And I can tell you this, is that we have more work to do in order to try and create new markets for agriculture products that our farmers grow. And while I am open for finding new markets wherever they may it be local, may it be regional, statewide, national, or international, I really do believe that the best market is to find the fact that we have a consumer base in this country that is craving for locally grown food in which they can connect to, food that tells a story. And I think that is what is so important, is we need to be able to tell a story about the food that is being raised on your farms and farms that come from this area. We need to be able to build out our supply chain as well. And in order to do that, and I know efforts are taking place within this State Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, but more work needs to be done as far as a supply chain. We need to be able to have more locally based slaughtering capacity in this state. Before these remarks, I had the opportunity to spend some time with Clare, and we spoke about the fact that for the grazed pigs that she's raising, she's sending those 2 hours south in order to find a processing facility. Now, we have to do better than that. We have to make sure that we can get more local processing, which is so very important. We also need to recognize the fact that while Wisconsin is the home of the cooperative movement, we need to get more grain milling and more local food processing within our rural areas. The consolidation that's taking place within food processing, it is just it's just rampant. And what has happened is it just led to an overall squeeze as far as what's happening in production agriculture. We also have to build upon the fact that, in Wisconsin, we produce an awful lot of milk. And we're proud of the fact that we are America's dairy land. But the thing is we need to recognize the fact that, people want to be able to, again, connect with the beverage of their choice. And obviously, I'm very, very partial when it comes to dairy. And I want to see us be able to, again, provide greater value added for our dairy products. Not just with the cheese, which is so nationally recognized, but again, what more can we do when it comes to cultured yogurts, when it can come to sour creams, ice cream, to say anything about drinking milk? But I'm going to wrap up my remarks by saying this, is that I believe that in Wisconsin, more effort needs to be done in order to protect the soil and water conservation that we have in this state. We are a state that is surrounded by water. We have two Great Lakes, one to the north and one to the east. We also have the mighty Mississippi River, which is just a few feet away from us. The thing is this, we sit as a landmass on top of an awful lot of groundwater. And I would argue that we need to recognize the fact that when it comes to agriculture policy, we have to do a better job of balancing production agriculture with water and soil conservation. And I know you're focused on that, and I appreciate that you're focused on that. But we have to make sure that we take these conversations that are taking place today, we continue to take that out into the marketplace of ideas and share these thoughts, because there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on agriculture right now. There's a lot of pressure on the conventional farmer as well when it comes to these grain prices. And the thing is this, fertilizer costs are through the roof. And what can we do? None of us want to lose farmers. How can we continue to demonstrate that there is value, that financial ends will meet if we continue to invest in more of a sustainable-based agriculture practices? And that is why this conference, held this weekend here in La Crosse, Wisconsin, is so valuable. And I am so happy that you're back, you're here. I've been here many years in the past through Moses. It's a great conference led by very good people, and I sure hope you have a good time. And I encourage you, take some time after the conference and just drive around and just see what we've got. This area is an area that is inhabited by an awful lot of hardworking, dedicated people that care an awful lot about production agriculture. They recognize the commitment to the land, they recognize the commitment to the water, and they recognize the fact that if we're going to move forward together as a people, we need to make sure that we do it in a sustainable and a holistic way. And I sure hope that we can take the values and the ideas that you hear today, and we can get that out to the larger marketplace of ideas, so we can have an agriculture policy that is truly sustainable and one that is truly reflective of the values of the people of this state. So with that, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Senator Pfaff. I think that you just touched on all of the things that we care about and we're going to be talking about at our time together, from food systems to consolidation and the challenges of that, to conservation and concerns about the natural landscape. So thank you so much for those opening remarks. So what I would like to say by word of welcome is we have in our space together what we need for thriving farms and healthy communities. And I want to share a story from last year. I'm sure some of you remember what was happening last year, right? We had funding paused. There were farmers among us that had started projects with contracts that they weren't getting refunded, they weren't getting reimbursed. And I had a call from my youngest daughter, and she said to me, "Mom, you're heading to the conference. Do you think this is where the revolution will begin?" And I said, "I can't tell you that one way or the other. I really don't know. I was thinking I need to be measured in my remarks. I just didn't know." And so that's what I told her. So fast forward a year later, a lot has happened in that year. And I called her up and I said, "You're on my mind. I'm headed to the conference. I think this is the year. This is the year the revolution starts." So thank you all for being here. And I want to just kind of remind us, too, that organic began as a movement. I know Claire mentioned that in some of her comments as well. It is our origin story. Farmers coming together to help each other access a new national standard. They were more than just an emerging market. They believed in their ability to build healthy soil, grow or raise healthy food, and feed their communities. The new label was a demonstration of that commitment. In the myriad of workshops and production-related content, I hope we have time to ask ourselves what we can create in this moment, knowing we have had success in the past. With our success, we became a threat to the status quo. Marbleseed's work this past year has focused on farmer education through mentorship, technical assistance, field days, trainings, and other events outside of this annual conference. We're working on building new and deeper partnerships, despite a tendency to only see scarcity as grants terminated and funders shifted priorities. And we've been holding policymakers accountable to the farmers in this room and in our communities, sharing stories about their challenges accessing state and federal resources. This conference has always been about abundance. The content for this year reflects a more intimate space and smaller gathering by design. We have hands-on workshops, farmer panels examining challenges from multiple production types, and featured speakers that help us consider both our current challenges but also our future opportunities. And in this year, we are also planning a second event in September. We're going to gather at Gwinnett Hill Farm for a day-long on-farm offering of workshops, which we can't do in the middle of the winter, that includes opportunities for eaters to join us as well. If we find and stay in solidarity and community, we do have what we need to thrive and nourish people, animals, and the planet. Our origin story includes the importance of farmers willing to share their knowledge and resources. Our Farmer of the Year recognition, celebration of what is one of the best things about our community. So I have the great honor of introducing this year's Farmer of the Year, and they are Beth and Steve Albert of Prairie Bluff Farm near Mount Horeb. Marbleseed's Farmer of the Year honors certified organic producers in the Midwest who have contributed to the organic farming movement through significant experience. They are leaders who provide mentorship to less practiced farmers, helping the organic movement continue to evolve. The Alberts sell pastured certified organic eggs throughout the greater Madison area under the brand name Pasture Pattern Eggs. They are the first pastured egg operation to receive this award. Super exciting. Today, Pasture Pattern has approximately 1,500 hens that spend most of their time in mobile coops designed by Steve, so I'm sure you're going to get to see some pictures of those. And I just want to say, previous to this role, I did have a local food restaurant, and we sourced all local, and we went out and we looked at a few different farmers that were producing eggs because we were a brunch spot, and we went through a lot of eggs. And we chose the Alberts Farm. It is an amazing operation. I am so excited that they agreed to be recognized and that they're here to share what they've learned through their operation and want to pass along the knowledge to the rest of the community. So I welcome Steve and Beth.
Thank you, Lori. And here comes Steve.
I didn't mean to abandon my wife. I'll just tell you, I have a medical condition that causes low blood pressure at times. And so if I exit and leave
why.
this to her, it's just what we do every day on the farm. So, but that's why. So Beth is going to share some things with you. I'm hoping that I can share a song with you, and thank you again for having us.
And thank you for your introduction, Lori. She really knows how to get us off the farm. We actually were at the second Organic Moses Conference in 1990, but haven't been since then. So we've been busy with a lot of other things. We are grateful to be here tonight, and this award means a great deal to us, but we know that it doesn't belong to us alone. So many people have shaped and supported our farm. Fellow farmers, people who grow feed for our hens, our workers and interns. The CSAs, stores, and restaurants like Cow and Quinn's, which unfortunately no longer exists, but it was a lovely restaurant in New Glarus. And most importantly, our customers, so many of whom we also call friends. We are also deeply grateful for our family and neighbors and friends who have supported us and worked alongside us through the years. And we accept this award with gratitude and appreciation for being a small part of the long-standing and vibrant food community in our part of the Midwest. So thank you. And now I will start our PowerPoint. So we'd like to share with you a bit of our path, our farming journey. Steve and I currently run a 60-acre certified organic pastured egg farm. As Lori said, we care for about 1,500 laying hens. We produce and deliver eggs to grocery stores, co-ops, CSAs, restaurants, and neighborhood drop-off sites, all within 30 miles of our farm. And this picture is the bluff that gives our farm its name. And this picture shows the patterns that our pens make as they move through the pastures. This is a picture of what it looks like inside those pasture pens. We move them every other day, and the birds love to eat the grass, the other forbs, and insects, especially crickets. These are their winter quarters, which are solar heated. And these are our faithful hens. We hand pick all of our eggs, do the feeding with an electric cart, wash and pack them, and we have a new carton that our daughter-in-law designed that really reflects our farm. And we deliver our eggs. In fact, I was doing that this morning before I came. Here are a few of our egg customers. We do some neighborhood drop-off sites. So this is a picture of one of those sites, and then to a bakery, Bloom Bake Shop, and that is Mark, who is one of our customers at Bloom Bake Shop. So when we got the email that we'd been named the Marbleseed Farmers of the Year, Steve and I just looked at each other and laughed. I thought it was another Steve and Beth farming couple that we know. And Steve thought it was an AI scam. But no, Lori assured us this was intentional and that Marbleseed wanted to recognize a pastured organic egg farmer. So here we are. It was both a surprise and an honor. And as I prepared this talk, Steve said, "Now don't make it sound too romantic." And he's right, farming isn't romantic most days, but it is a calling that behaves like an illness. Once it's in your blood, it's hard to shake, and like most farming journeys, ours has had some unexpected twists and turns. Steve and I met at UW-Madison, And that's kind of what Steve looked like when I met him. He'd come to class wearing overalls and a farmer cap. Neither one of us came from farming families, but we both felt pulled towards the farming way of life, the land, the work, the community. I majored in biology and Steve in rural soc. We apprenticed on dairies, learned to drive horses. I researched rotational grazing and then studied to become a nurse. In 1992, we bought a small farm near Mount Horeb with the dream of raising a family there. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. In 1993, after lots of hard work getting the place ready, we bought a small herd of Jersey cows and milked them for 3 years. We learned a lot in a short period, but it took its toll. The winter of 1996 was especially brutal. Among other challenges, we lost half of our herd to pneumonia and painfully realized that we were just too experienced and our facilities weren't right for modern dairying. When I was pregnant with our second child, we made the difficult decision to sell our land. And that's my dad. And next to him is Granny Pat, who first told us about our farm. And she also gave her land to start Donald Park, which is right next door. Letting go was painful but necessary. At the time, it felt like a failure. But looking back, it wasn't the end of our farming journey, just a redirection. After the auction, we regrouped. I continued nursing. Steve became a carpenter. We raised 3 kids, got them ponies and horses, raised pigs, starting in the basement. Started a beef herd, garden, put up hay, got baby kittens. Our kids loved animals. Our first pastured poultry were meat birds based on Joel Salatin's model. And we made our first mobile chicken coop for layers on top of an old yacht trailer. And our oldest son started a homeschooling business delivering eggs. So that's how we got into egg farming. Pretty soon, the whole family was involved. We purchased an egg washing machine and washed eggs in the basement as a family. And by 2007, we scaled it up and started selling eggs commercially. During our early years of egg farming, or during our years, we've improved our systems, set up solar hoop houses for the winter months, and slowly built up a customer base. In 2020, nearly 30 years after we first started our farming journey together, I was finally able to retire from nursing and farm full-time with Steve. What I love most about farming now is the community built around food, the relationships with customers, stores, neighbors, and other farmers. Steve loves building things, making things work better and more sustainably. Our kids are grown now. And somehow, we've become the old-timers. In conclusion, this is what we'd like to leave with you. Even though we're receiving an award today, we don't feel like we've arrived because farming is a journey and there's always more to learn. The path is rarely straight. It takes longer than expected and requires more persistence than you can imagine. None of us can do this alone. But we need community. We need young, energetic farmers just starting out. We need consumers who choose local food again and again. We need restaurants and bakeries who create gathering spaces around locally sourced food. We need seasoned farmers, even the tired ones, who hold perspective and wisdom. Every one of those roles matters. That's how a resilient local food system is built. Together. Thank you for being part of this good work. And now, for a special treat, Steve is going to sing a song called "The Place Where We Live" that he wrote.
Okay, so it was January, and I was starting to think about the conference a little bit, and I knew we were supposed to say something. And it was 20 below, and there was like a 30-mile-an-hour wind out of the northwest, and I think it was probably worse up here. And we just had several days of that, and I honestly couldn't think of one positive thing to say about what we were doing. So I tried to think, sometimes it helps me to think of spring at those times. And so I wrote a little song kind of about that, and then about this area that we live in. I'm shaking. Sorry, this isn't my normal living here. When the cold and wet subside, longer days and warmer nights, there's a stir upon the land where we live. A farmer works the ground, and the seed is laid down. Hope returns, another year where we live. Where we live, the hills roll on and on, born in wind and water song, rich in life upon an ancient sea. Where we live for 12,000 years, people lived and died here in customs that kept it clean. And with the warmer days, life returns in gentle ways, as new song fills the land and sky. The meadowlark's sweet tone calls everybody home, and the world comes alive where we live. Where we live, the hills roll on and on, never changing dusk and dawn, clothed in grasses and trees. Where we live, streams and rivers flow, and valleys bending to and fro, carrying our dreams to the sea. And when the dark and cold finds a way into my soul, it takes more than I have to give. Think upon a day in the first week of May, when the world comes alive where we live. Where we live, the hills roll on and on, born in wind and water song, rich in life upon an ancient sea. Where we live for 12,000 years, people lived and died here in customs that kept it clean. A farmer works strokes the ground, and the seed is laid down, and hope returns another year where we live.
All right, thank you so much, Steve and Beth, for the special treat. Music has been a core part of this conference for a long time, but I think that's the first time I've seen it as part of the Farmer of the Year award. And thank you for sharing the inspiration of your journey. My name is Dylan Bruce. I'm a member of the board of Marbleseed. I'm the treasurer. I farm vegetable and flower seeds about an hour south of here. And a lot of the words that they're speaking really rung true for me, and the need for community. And when there was that cold January northwest wind blowing, there were other things happening to make us want to lose hope besides the bitter wind chill. And so that's why this year I'm particularly pleased to announce Marbleseed's 2026 Changemaker of the Year, an organization that's been inspiring me for a number of years when I first met them at the conference here. And the Changemaker of the Year really honors emerging leaders in the organic farming and food movement who creatively overcome systemic challenges to nurture a thriving agricultural future for all of us. Sharing Our Roots is a land-based organization in Northfield, Minnesota that provides long-term land access for immigrant, BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, and emerging farmers. 10 farms leased from them on their 163 acres of previously degraded monocropped farmland, and they also run 7 community gardens that support an additional 125 growers. Unlike typical incubator farms, which usually have shorter-term 3 to 5 year agreements, Sharing Our Roots provides land indefinitely to farmers who agree to farm within guidelines of soil health, animal biosecurity, and organic certification. I am pleased to present this honor to Derek Myers, Executive Director of Sharing Our Roots, who will introduce the farmers accompanying him here today. So please help me welcome them up to the stage. Thank you.
Oh, this is for them.
Yeah. Oh, whoops, that's
You got the wrong one.
There you go.
Well, Dylan said most of what I was going to say, so. Yeah, you took a bit of it. Yeah, my name's Derek Myers. I am the Executive Director for Sharing Our Roots, but I'm very, very new. I started in December, so I really can't claim any credit for this. This award really belongs to these folks behind me and these folks over here in the corner. If you'd all stand up, please. If you grow with us, if you work for us, if you're on our board, big hand to Elkanah, yeah. So give it up for them. I'll try to say a little bit about what we do. I mean, Dylan covered most of it, but yeah, we have a farm and 7 gardens, and really what we do is our mission is to advance a resilient agriculture system that heals the land, nourishes our communities, and prepares emerging farmers for success. So that work starts by recognizing the history of the land and the people that were there before us, especially the Wapakudi band of the Dakota people. We also need to recognize that the current agricultural system was built using slave and immigrant labor while excluding and exploiting women, people of color, LGBTQ plus people, indigenous folks, and many other marginalized groups. Boy, everything that I was going to say here, Dylan, you pretty much covered. I did, yeah, and like some of the stuff that Alyssa's going to say is going to cover it too, but It's 163 acres. We have 7 community gardens across Northfield and Faribault, and those gardens serve about 160 different families, which is really really cool. Those families get connected to the land in a way that wasn't possible before, and then they also get connected to the farm because one of the gardens is out there and we hold events out there. So we're bringing the larger community into agriculture in a really cool way. I also have to give a shout out to Nick Nelson, who's our natural lands manager. He does a lot of the conservation work that's on our farm as well. We've had species like the Sullivan's milkweed, fox sedge, water pepper, and the northern long-eared bat make a return to our land because of some of his work. And then a shout out on a shout out, he wanted me to recognize Al Rabin. I don't know if he's here, but he helped a lot with some mapping stuff and securing some funding over the last couple of years. So big thanks to him. So along with what Dylan said, that's kind of sharing our roots in a nutshell. But I need to get a little more serious here and talk about what's been happening in Minnesota, because our vision, which I think a lot of you share, our vision of a just restorative ag system has really come under fire in Minnesota. The occupation of Minnesota by DHS has been extremely difficult for our growers and their families. It's been difficult really for anyone with brown skin or an accent, regardless of your immigration status or your criminal history. That's really important to understand. In Minnesota, ICE agents are not concerned with the law. They are not targeting criminals. They are not getting proper warrants. And their mission is not to make us safer, but rather to scare and intimidate. And that puts us all in more danger. We saw that with the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. This blatant institutionalized racism will not stop unless we all stand up to it. And that's been the bulk of our work over the last 3 months. We've raised and distributed mutual aid, connected people to resources, raised awareness, brushed up on legal rights, and prepared for a growing season as best we can in this new reality. We've learned a lot, and I'm sure we've made mistakes, but the silver lining is we've made so many other connections. A really incredible coalition of people and organizations have come together to join this fight, and we're going to win. We will win it. Our communities, our food system, and our planet demand that we win. And if you haven't already, I hope that you all join us in this work. While you're here at this conference, amidst the workshops and the panel discussions, take some time to reflect on how you can be a voice for justice, how you can stand in solidarity with your neighbors, and how we can all create a brighter future together. And if you want to talk more about what this looks like and what we've seen, what's worked, what hasn't, please come find us. We'd love to talk to you. That's all for me. I'm going to pass it off to Alyssa Jacobson, someone I deeply admire and knows a lot more about farming than I do, our farm manager, Alyssa Jacobson. Thank you, everybody.
Hey everyone, my name is Alyssa. I've been the farm manager at Sharing Our Roots for the last 3 years. I come from a background of vegetable production, a little indigenous food sovereignty, some nonprofit food justice work. But back when I got into agriculture 16 years ago, I was really convinced like agriculture is either the best or the worst thing that we can do for our environment. I still believe that's very true. But I really stuck around in agriculture because of the community. And I know a lot of us, hail from rural parts of the country. And the way that folks come together around farming and sustainable agriculture and organic practices is just such a hopeful thing. So being able to leverage some of my skills to help support our farmers at Sharing Our Roots is such a joy and a privilege. The community there is really incredible. Our farmers are really diverse, not just in their backgrounds, but also their productions. We've got cattle, we've got organic hay, we've got a halal sheep herd, we have apiaries, we have botanicals, we have vegetable growers. So it's just a very cool place to work. And then the way that these different communities, whether they're Kenyan or Somali or Latino, come together is so powerful. So folks get their own parcel that they lease out from us, and then we have a lot of shared infrastructure where those spaces are in commons with each other. So the pack shed, irrigation, these things are shared, and that just comes with some like really lovely conversations and shared ideas. So 2 years ago, we had like one of the worst floods in the spring. We had 30 inches of rain by May 15th. We're supposed to get that much rain for the whole season. I'm sure a lot of you here remember how hard that spring was. A lot of our canyon growers were like, what am I supposed to do with all my long season crops that I wasn't able to get in the ground due to flooding? And one of our Latino growers were like, you should try growing cilantro, super quick turnover rate, and it became some of our canyon growers' best-selling products for that year, even though they were like, we've never heard of cilantro until today. So there's just, it's just a really powerful community to be a part of, and we all know here how deeply important land access is. I personally feel like going out to my grandma and my great aunt's farm growing up was really formative to who I became today. And through our community garden program, shout out to Noemi, who is the manager of our community connector program. That reaches 160 families. There's around 40 or 50 families who have access to our farm through the community or through the farmer program. And it's just so joyful to see people out there not just farming, but also being in nature, kids running around, and having a space to gather. That's so important and fundamental. I think it's easy to say like clean water is a human right, but I also think that having good access to land and growing your own food, especially culturally important food, is a right too. And so having models of land access that can get really creative, like we do at Sharing Our Roots, is important, because in Minnesota, less than 1% of farmland is owned by farmers of color. And that's a really small percentage. We can all recognize that there's an imbalance there. So there's one of the biggest land transfers with farmland coming up in the next 20 years. Is that land going to go to data centers or development or really large conventional farms, or are we going to keep these resilient communities and get creative with how we own land and share it with everyone? So I'm going to pass it over to Mofat, one of our growers, and he's a really amazing vegetable producer in his going into his third growing season at Sharing Our Roots. So.
Thank you. My name is Mofat Otwera. My origin is from Kenya. I give a little story. I started farming when I was a little kid, like 9 years, following my parents to the garden. So we do organic farming. Is like most Africans, we do organic farming. So we believe organic farming is a healthy food and also is a medicine. So we do mixed vegetable, of which I came to practice in our group, Share Our Roots. So we are practicing a lot of different fruits, vegetables, and beans. So I'm so grateful to join this group. It's an amazing one. And this is my first time to attend this conference. I'm so grateful to see you guys with different ideas and ideology. I'm so grateful to see different faces with the same idea. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mofat. My name is Khalid Al Hassan. I'm part of the Sudanese farming group. And we're a group of about 30 or 40 families, all of Sudanese ethnicity. That's in East Africa. And we all farm at Sharing Our Roots in Northfield, Minnesota. We also have another farm in the Twin Cities, an urban farm, community garden. This is our third year farming at our Sharing Our Roots, and we truly run a community model of farming. I've heard Beth and Steve talk about like how isolated and how hard and how lonely farming could be. And with the help of Sharing Our Roots, they didn't just help us break the color barrier or the accent barrier, but also the isolation and the loneliness of farming. It doesn't have to be that way. We farm together, more than 40 families. We do everything communally together, all the hard work. We harvest everything together, and we share the produce of the land together. It's a very fun experience. When you come out there, every Sunday you find like all these kids around, different generations, the elders, the youth, everyone doing this together. And it's a lot of fun. For us, it's important. We come from a very collectivistic Eastern culture, and coming here to the US, and we find it's not only our skin is different, not only our accent is different, but also our way of life, our values. And with the help of Sharing Our Roots, they helped us maintain our ethnic pride and instill that confidence and self-esteem and pride in the next generation. Thank you very much. A lot of our culture is verbally passed down, and this is a community that is steeped in civilization and culture. We hail from the Merowe and the Napata and the Kush civilization that predate the Bible by thousands of years. This is a great nation that have been building amazing pyramids and working metal and gold thousands of years ago, when the rest of the world was still doing a lot of very primitive tool and bronze tools. So it's very important for us to maintain that pride and to maintain that culture. For us, organic and local is not a fad, is not just a word of the day. This is our way of life for thousands of years, and it's important for us to continue doing it even here in the West. So we're very grateful to Sharing Our Roots, and there's a lot of resources that are provided over there. It's not just the tractors and the tools and the preparing of the land ahead of the season, but it's also the very supportive and very helpful community. Anytime we have a question, there's always somebody who volunteers before even waiting to be asked. We're really grateful and we're very happy, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Wow, congratulations to Sharing Our Roots and for being an amazing demonstration of exactly that statement of we have what we need. So that's beautiful. So as I give congratulations to our current year Changemaker, I am also having the opportunity to introduce a past Changemaker. So Reginaldo Haslett-Marroquin was both a Changemaker for then Moses, but also a former Marbleseed board member. Rehi joined the board just before I was hired, and I always cherished the opportunity to sit and think and dream with him. The Ag Solidarity Network was a direct outcome of some of these sessions. Rehi ultimately left the board to build a better chicken system, tree-range chicken, a manifestation of a food system that truly centers people, planet, and animals. Rehi's an entrepreneur, an author, a farmer, and a revolutionary. It is in the spirit of all these identities he is kicking off this year's conference, an opening meditation on solidarity and courage in this moment. So Rehi.
That was a good one. Let the revolution begin. Right? Thank you very much. Good, Lori. And I'm going to start by introducing our team from Northfield, Minnesota. And sitting right here, if you guys could stand up, I would like to introduce They said anybody doing change never shows up alone. So this is. So if you have any questions after you want to visit, oh, Delicia, you were back there. I was wondering where you were sitting. And if you want to visit, ask questions about anything, Delicia runs the processing facility out of Stacyville, Iowa. Diane is our executive director. Beck runs our ecosystem management. Nick does communications. Louis is a consultant out of Wisconsin. Stephanie runs our business administration. And Shannon runs our warehouse, and Ted runs marketing and distribution, and partially communications, of course, because of that role. So I'll leave it at that for now, but know that tomorrow we'll be also doing a workshop on this poultry system, and you're welcome to join us there too. And as part of that introduction, also the author part, I wrote a book in 2017 with Acres USA. It's called In the Shadow of Green Men. And that title came from many sources, but I think the most important thing is that when I was 4 years old, the Civil War broke out in Guatemala. And I had been in the U.S. for 4 years. I came in 92, and in 96, the peace agreements were signed. So that whole time, I spent in that shadow of that incredible, physically, mentally, spiritually, compressed environment, to the point that when I got to Minnesota, it was very hard to relax, because that idea that something is going to happen, it was always there and still there. It never goes away, but then you learn to figure it out. And so, pick back a little bit about the comments and thanks, Derek, for that reminder that democracy and the rights of people has always been fought for. It never came for free. And whenever we relax and let the darkness take over, it will take over. And so this is one of those times. And like I said to my kids recently, I didn't think I was going to have to be remembering these things and trying to remember all the training and everything I went through. And yet, here we are. Again, having to deal with the same exact darkness. And believe me, it's absolutely no different. In our staff, we have a weekly check-in. And in that check-in, there's always a main question that is posed. And last week, it was about doors and the doors we go through. Many times when Beck or someone else puts out the question, I got to think a little bit, okay, how do I answer that? This one was like, dang, simple. When I was in 7th grade, I was asked by the sociology professor, the class was asked, to write a mission statement. I mean, which professor asked that from kids, right, at 7th grade? But we did. Marcelo René Lopez is in the book. You have to buy the book, though. And then this in the bookstore is right in front. You can't miss it, by the way. I mean, we also market products, so heck, it's like, we'll make a living otherwise. But so, just like the door question, check-in question, when the professor asked that, I just wrote right away, to graduate from the School of Agriculture. And, well, I was coming from the wrong side of town. There is a landing strip that divides the main town from the village. And back then, it was just a couple hundred families. And nobody wanted to talk to the people on that side of this landing strip. So the professor brings me in and says, it sounds good. I'm glad you know what you want to do, but what if you were to be a little bit more realistic about expectations? And so anyway, I thought about it like, well, he's my mentor. We were taught to respect the elders, and you listen to them. So I went back and told my mom about it. And I could understand her expression. I thought she was mad at me for something. The next day, she's dressed up in the morning, 7 a.m., walking me to school again. And I was like, oh, man, all embarrassed. My mom's coming to school with me. Oh, geez, what is she going to do? Anyway, he goes to the teacher and says, now you asked my son to write his mission statement for his life. You did not ask him what you thought to write what you thought he was able to do in his life. So you take this, and he's going to get an A+. I made that one up. So, the doors we walked through. And here's why that was important. When Beck put that question for our check-in, it was instant to me because it was my only ticket to getting an education. I was the first in the family who got it. I was the first up to now. I'm the only one who has a university-level degree. And it was the difference. I was at that point 15 years old or so when that question was asked. 2 years later, I did get the scholarship, and I did graduate in 1987 from the school. But at that point, my paths were two. I either found a way to stay away and not get killed by the violence going on by being a student, because students were protected. Either that, or I had already been recruited, I was already in training in the northern rainforest to join the rebel army. Those were the two paths. And not having got that scholarship meant the other path, because I wasn't going to stay just there sitting duck. And so here we are, feeding the world, figuring out how to do it better, building teams, dreaming of better ways, dreaming of better times, and trying to hold back the darkness so it doesn't catch up with us again. And I hope in this context of this meditation, that is what you bring home. We're all doing our part. And I just so love that we are here with Sharing Our Roots, because we are about to talk about expanding the canopy of change. But a canopy can't exist without roots. So we first share the roots so that a trunk strong enough to sustain the wind and the ice and everything can grow. And as that grows, if it is strong enough, it will grow a canopy. Cannot expand a canopy without strong roots. And sharing our roots is critical in order to share our canopy. And in the middle of all of that, guess who's in the middle of all of that? The chickens, right at the ground level. Because the chicken is a fowl, it's a jungle fowl. He likes that space, under the trees, above the roots, under the canopy. And he wants more canopy and he wants more roots. And they did come to an agreement a long time ago that was the trees and the chickens will share the world that way. And that's what we picked. And our story, our collective story, our narrative is literally shaped by the chickens now. I'm sorry, but that's all the stuff we have. So, but the thing is, you and we expect and we hope that we all will find our own narrative in this space. We are talking about expanding a canopy of change because in the shade, in the shadow of that canopy, we can all find our own narrative and our own path and our own inspiration and maybe dream those things that we may become, and don't let anyone, no matter who, tell you to be more realistic about your expectations. So considering, and you will read this declaration in the broadcaster. In case you didn't catch it, this is your call to do the homework. Read the declaration. Considering, this is just one paragraph, of course, the whole thing is written in there, that at this time industrial agriculture expansion has been scientifically proven and field verified to degrade food quality, pollute our waters, compromise soil and ecological integrity, harm human health, and has abandoned food and agriculture's fundamental role, ancestral, I would say, center on nourishing life and our communities with integrity. I don't think we can disagree with that anymore. It used to be that some scientific-minded dude would come and challenge that. Can't do that anymore. I mean, they can still try, but nobody's buying that merchandise anymore. So, considering that is true, then be it resolved in the ancient ways of deciding where we're going to stand and what we're going to do. May it be then resolved that we commit to being part of a new local, regional, national, and global agriculture movement, aligning our actions and resources to restore the quality and integrity required to restore agriculture to its original purpose, that we commit to stewarding the natural processes that gave origin and continue to support all life as a foundation of the science and methodology, and to organize into regain control and ownership of the system, so we may defend, protect, and secure our right to food, water, clean air, healthy food, and healthy lives. Democracy isn't free, and the freedom to choose our food and to own and control it isn't either. Whether we do it or it doesn't happen. Whether we study to get that scholarship to graduate from the School of Agriculture or it doesn't happen. We are reborn every morning, and every morning this meditation that we're going to go through, I hope it reminds us of the incredible capacity for which we are feared. Why does a heavily armed group of people fear a peaceful demonstrator? You think we are the ones afraid? Not at all. Not at all. If we were the ones afraid, we would be the ones armed to our teeth. Never forget that comparison again, because that is our power. And in agriculture, our ability to unplug from the extractive nature of the system that has degenerated to the point that it has is exactly what we are a threat to when we commit, when we resolve to not be extracted upon, abused, and exploited anymore. And luckily for us, everything that our farm needs is right there, given to us by creation itself. Nobody should own that, and it doesn't have to be that way. For why? Why is that true? For we are all, and I myself, I am simply an expression of the energy of the universe that through the process of evolution of the planet was transformed from toxic mix in the origin of it until it got packaged and put away, and all of those things until life could emerge. My roots are just as far as the origin of life itself, and so is yours. And as we concentrate on that, we start to reclaim a new identity. We are indigenous to the planet, all of us, independent of the color of our skin or where we were born. We are indigenous. We are made out of carbon, out of nitrogen, out of the same elements of the earth itself. When we meditate on that and we realize that food, it really isn't a product, it's not a commodity for sure. Food is simply one of those expressions of energy of the life on the planet that through the geo-evolutionary process of the earth came to be in that magnificent way of expressing itself. When we identified with that, then we start to understand food. We are all food. Everything is food. And I hope one day, somebody asked me the other day at St. John's University about the chickens and why do we have to kill the animals. And I said, well, why does the tiger kill the rabbit? I mean, I wish I could ask them, because then I could give you an answer. Because they know better than I do. I just know I raise the chickens to eat them. Now, on the other hand, they are food, and I will honorably and 100% voluntarily be food to worms one day. I have no problem with that. Why would I have a problem with making food out of other things? We are all food at the end of the day. When we realize those things, we come at peace. And then we come into this space and we no longer see just the chicken. Above the roots is the chicken. Above the chicken is the canopy. And below in those roots is this mass-scale geo-evolutionary blueprint of the earth that gave birth to the trillions of bacteria, fungi, even viruses and everything, that together form the three layers where energy transformation happens at the largest scale: photosynthesis, animal intervention in the middle, and the biology of the soil below. And if you block the animal from it, everything else almost stalls to a halt. And that is a critical thing to understand, because when we go into a space, if you say, well, how do you start being a regenerative farmer? Well, in our case, we just bring the chickens in. For somebody else, maybe the egg layers. Somebody else, maybe cattle, maybe sheep, maybe something else. We chose the chicken, or maybe let's better say it's just, the chicken chose us to be their partner. Remember, pets choose you. We never choose them. They always go like, take me. It's kind of what the chickens did with us. And here we are, doing their bidding. They want to be food. We're just helping. So, some things come right up. Photosynthetic outputs and animal outputs, 2 layers of harvesting energy. Berries, vegetables, photosynthetic outputs. Some meat, eggs, no longer photosynthetic outputs, is the second layer of energy transformation now. But you need the animal in the middle. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Take a bale of hay and put it in the field. It will be 9 to 13 months before it's soil. Take that bale and feed it to a cow, and 72 hours or so later is already poop and pee, and another 72 hours later is being absorbed by a hazelnut tree or something else or the pasture. That is the speed at which the molecular structures are broken down by the biodigestive tract of all living systems that have a tract. Even the worms have one, right? That magnificent place where biophysics and chemistry combine for this rapid molecular decomposition of elements so that they become available to our absorption systems in the intestine is what, in my formation, I ended up calling and understanding as the biodigestive tract of the earth. If you think of the microbes in your gut, which is what, over 1 trillion and over 2.5 pounds, as long as you're a healthy individual, that is, to me, is equivalent to all of us individually to the earth. We are the microbes of the earth. We make those elements broken down. We break them down so that the earth can then absorb them and make more life. Just like we can weed a carrot, those microbes in our intestine, break them down so that life can happen, hair and everything. Just think of that for a second. If you understand the concept of Gaia, the earth as a living system, there should be no confusion as to making those parallels and to actually scientifically verifying them, if you so wish. But what I am saying this is because this is a meditation on expanding the canopy of change. And what is change but the fact that we can change the way we see things? The colonizing mind says, go get it, extract it, maximize. That word offends me. Maximize productivity, maximize profit, maximize this, maximize that. We were trained, let's put it this way, we were domesticated into behaving and thinking in a certain way. And we are thrown the bone and we go and grab it and bring it back to the master. Okay, when do we stop doing that? When we change. And that's why change is so critical, and it's important to expand it as much as possible because we need to be doing that all the time. And so that change to me was always take the colonizer, identify it, put it in a corner, interrogate them, learn from them so we stop repeating it. So we can change into something else. And what is this something else? It's the re-identification with our indigenous origins, where the indigenous intellect then gets engaged to uncover the other 95 to 97% of the possibilities of that landscape in front of you, which is invisible to us when we only use the colonizing mindset. And that's where this beauty of change comes from. But we must push ourselves. If we don't, it's very easy and very comfortable to be an extractor, a colonizer. And that's why so many are so rich. So as we do this, some of this energy we cannot harvest it right away, but other things will harvest it, again, back in the soil. And that we are now transforming into other kinds of outputs of energy like grains and vegetables and medicinal herbs, and full plates of food now are expressed out of that energy that it just keeps expanding its own canopy. And it keeps changing as a result of that process that is biophysical and chemically based, that is as old as the earth and life on earth itself. Now, if anybody says, well, I'm going to improve that and create a genetically modified organism to improve on that, good luck with that, catching up with, 60 billion years of research and development. And I'll leave it at that. So, that we commit to organizing for collective change. We agreed to that. Collective change, what does that mean? From where I come from, and looks like from some of you come from, collective change isn't about coming here and agreeing to do something and then going back and doing it on your own. That's not collective change. Collective change is being able to take responsibility, to take risks, to spread the risk, and then also to set up governing, ownership, and control structures that allows us to have representation in that space so that then we can decide on how we manage things such as the Lakota and the Dakota, the Lakota, the Wapihute in our region and so on, actually govern territories. Not a farm, not a family, but they decided on territories. And you can find over 1,500 communities like that in places like Guatemala that have organized themselves to manage the whole country, the whole territory, according to that communal structure. That's collective organizing. And so we are attempting to do that. Because of that, we mapped everything that the chicken could touch. And then we said, okay, what if we turn those into enterprise sectors? Instead of thinking of a farm producing chickens, now we think of many, so we could have a processing facility, so we could have capital at a different scale, but it's still governed in a way that responds to what we want to achieve at the end of the day, and that it does change the things that we want to change. And what are those? Ownership, control, and governance. Because we went wrong when we decided that the government and the corporations were going to take control, ownership, and governance of the system. That's when everything went wrong. For as long as we had control and ownership and governance of it, we were fine. So now we are imposed upon things that we disagree with, and we have no way out. That is the ultimate point of a colonizing system, is when you can no longer think what it would be to do things differently. Ask any conventional farmer, and it's almost an impossible conversation. It's very hard to convince a conventional farmer that there is a different way. Why? Because we no longer know and can conceive the idea that there is such a thing. That is the ultimate goal of any colonizing system. So, as we go forward, farming within systems so we don't have to farm alone is a concept we have been honing continuously. What does that mean? Well, a farmer is in the middle of a system of farms as opposed to just sitting out there on their own. Their chickens get collected and put into a collective package, so to speak, so that if somebody has a problem, we coordinate. The same concept of going into a farm and farming it together, but now we can go and farm a region instead of just a farm. But it's the same concept. And that's the idea of expanding the canopy of change. Because we may change things, but if we do it in a way that only affects my family or my farm, we don't change the system. We may change our family, but the expanding of the canopy of change is precisely going beyond that. And that requires this kind of thinking process where you say, not what I'm going to do with the chickens, but what would the chickens want to do? And then you see the world from their eyes, not from ours. So the chicken is a jungle fowl, and if you ask the chicken, he will say, well, about 10,000 years ago, the hazelnuts and the prairie chickens here in this part of the world got together. They had this big gathering, and everybody came to it because the owls and the eagles said, you must all come here. And so the hazelnut was on the bottom, and the elderberries were on the bottom of the understory of the forest, and the oaks and the sugar maples and the cottonwoods were on the top, and so the eagle opened the gathering together with the vulture, and then they said, well, the chicken has brought this great complaint that they are too easy prey. So what are we going to do about it? Because they also need their rights protected. And so hazelnut said, well, chicken, if you would come and poop in the trunk of my canopy, I would expand it and make it so thick that the hawks and the eagles won't be able to see you. And this is why scientifically you can check that the chicken is one of the least efficient nutrient converters, feed conversion rates Why is that? Because there was an agreement made between the hazelnuts and the chickens so that they would be not very efficient, so that more nitrogen would be pooped. And if you go and look at the data that we're collecting now from our hazelnuts, the hazelnuts are increasing the productivity almost 2 times when there's chickens, and decreasing the empty nuts that didn't fill in excess of 30%. That means 30% more productivity, and then doubling on top of it. There was an agreement. We just needed to listen. When we meditate on the actual power of energy transformation and the biophysics and chemistry of an ecosystem, we start to see all these stories just right there, written in front of you, and everybody passes them right by. Well, why is that? Because we forget to see the world with the other 95% of our indigenous intellect. If we can change and start seeing the world like that again, we can solve everything from hunger to water to soil depletion to everything we have been always talking about is a problem. It's not a problem of the landscape, it's a problem in here. That's what the problem is. We just need to imagine that different world and, of course, start a revolution, right? So, hazelnuts are part of our poultry system. We get to share this now and be able to expand this canopy out into other places. The kids coming up are also able to experience things to the point that, so Lars is here, he's my youngest, Nikte is here. When Nikte went to college in Vermont, she called me one day, sent me a picture and says, "Papa, they called this chicken." She knew what real chicken was like. And Lars goes into the farm and instinctively know what's going on. That is called indigenous intellect, and is actually scientifically verifiably accurate. You read and see what is actually going on. Now we are codifying that so others can have access to it, but some of these kids are coded with it from the beginning, right? Just like kids growing up with phones, and they know how to use them in every way, actually except for productive things. They can do everything else, right? Anyway. Capturing value that current systems extract from the farm. The value of the products from the farm has not been, and has always been, pushed off the farm. And so if we don't capture what's next, we lose the value of what we grow on the farm. But doing it on a farm alone, it wasn't my idea of how I wanted to farm. So we waited, my wife and I waited until we had a system strong enough to sustain another farm before we actually went and took a loan and financed the farm that we bought. Why? Because without a system that we can participate in, our farm was not viable. And if it was viable, it would be at the cost of our own marriage probably, because you know how that goes. And so I didn't want to go into that route because I knew it was a dead end. So we waited. We're still struggling, of course, and we still got to figure out how to pay the mortgage and all those things. But at least now we are under a canopy that is continuously expanding and generating more wealth. And as that wealth is generated beyond the farm, we're able to actually decide how that wealth gets distributed. And then we have more of a chance of our farm actually making it because it's not being extracted upon, but it is by design. The system itself wouldn't have it that way. We made it that way. And that is what we are talking about. So yeah, processing chickens. Delicia's here because she runs our processing facility in Stacyville, Iowa. It's a USDA facility. It's got all kinds of food certification, even halal certification coming up, right? And so on. Now we can do a lot of things. You guys want to bring other kinds of chickens in there and process them in a different protocol. Now you can come talk to Delicia, and because we get to decide what we do, now we have the authority, we have the control of that process, not somebody else telling us what we can and cannot do. So the meaning of social organizing is really community building. Just going out there and organizing and going to do a protest, that's not organizing. That is responding, is reacting, and there is a place for that. In the war in Guatemala and the insurgency training, we learned that if more than 10% of all of us were out there doing that kind of reaction, then we will lose. 90% of everything we did was to support and to build what we wanted. And that's why over 1,500 communities were able to establish governing systems while the war was going on, because it was only a small percentage that was actually holding the darkness out while the rest could actually get to the work of doing what we needed. And so is today. And that is when we start actually socially organizing. It's when there is, the iceberg is what eyes get to see, the top of it. I thought that was a joke, by the way. But like my kids say, don't tell jokes, Papa. Organizing as in bringing other people who are part of our support infrastructure. That canopy of change, this is the, what was this? That was the Farm A dinner. So we hosted the opening Farm A dinner. And you came to play music. That was so awesome. So anyway, that expands that canopy over to literally hundreds of other supporters and 20-something influencers that are talking about this. And the Regenerative Food Systems Investment Forum also, we hosted them and so on, so that we can keep expanding. But we're not doing that because of an organization or a farm. At this point, we're just trying to bring everybody into that canopy with the idea that we can organize. Not just come together, but organize. This is the hazelnut nursery. I know, Louis, you were very happy that day. So what we did was, the most expensive thing of setting up one of our poultry units is that you have to plant the trees right away, right at the beginning, right? And the most expensive part is the trees. So we said, well, what if we just do our nurseries? We have raised, I was doing the numbers the other day, in excess of $250,000 worth of trees, and we haven't spent a penny yet. Now, where is that in the financial analysis that investors and the bankers do? And you, sorry, Saitao, not picking on you, by the way. It isn't, but it is in our wealth creation under the canopy is real, because that's $250,000 that didn't go out from our ecosystem, and that means it's wealth we get to turn over and over. There was an economist who came over a long time ago and calculated that if $1 comes into our system now, it multiplies 12 times because of the way it's structured. That is what we call, not profit, we call it wealth creation. What is profit but a colonizing term to codify extraction? That's what it is. But wealth is the collective ability to all of us have something beyond what we invested. But everybody has to have access to it. And that's why the canopy is critical to protect and to enhance and to defend that space once we built it. And very strong roots so that that tree keeps growing bigger. Equipment. I won't go into this because we'll do that tomorrow. Collective circularity in the meaning of value and values. You heard about circular economy, circular this, circular that. But how do you build it? I wrote a post the other day and I said, how many of you go to conferences and get all excited about these things going on and come home and you sit down and you were like, how the heck do I do that? And there is no code, there is no instructions, there is no process. So that's where we went differently. We are building the actual step-by-step process. And that means understanding where there is value and what the values of that value is so that we don't get lost. This is another joke. I see if it works. Back in ag school, we had two sayings. One was, if you don't know where you're going, every bus takes you there. And the other one, never confuse magnesium with gymnasium. That was a professor who used to say that. So yeah, delicious chicken, but that's not the point. The point is that we now have a collective brand. And that brand belongs to us. Anybody who participates in the system and is willing to contribute in the ancestral tradition, you give so you must, just so you can receive. It is by giving that you receive. It's even written in every ancient spiritual book. It is by giving that you receive. It is true in every way. If you don't give to the soil, you can't receive its fruits. If you don't put a seed down, you can't receive the crop. It's by giving that we receive. But it's not exactly like that. It's by sharing that we increase the canopy of change and the wealth that we can create. delicious meals that we have now been sharing in Rochester through our partner, Wilbur de la Rosa at Tortilleria La Maisteca. I think they're reaching up to 5,000 meals delivered to folks stuck at home right now, unable to leave. And so, I don't know, is Sarah here from the Healing Soils Foundation? They just raised money so that the farmers who grew the chickens can get paid with a donation from the Healing Soils Foundation, but the people stuck at home don't have to pay for it. Because we still got to get paid. I mean, I can't give away our chickens because how do I keep the farm? And if we go down, then what's going to be there for the next time there's a crisis, right? And this is where the canopy of change keeps expanding even further and further. It's not theoretical either. And it is not just about farmers coming together and having our regular complaining conversations about the system and how it exploits us and all those things, right? No, it's about how we engage all of these resources as well and then give everyone, if you know our culture, in my culture, it's really hard to ask for help. And when we do, it's because we got to the end of it. And when we get help, I have gotten at least 15 calls now from people who are asking, how can we thank all these people? We don't even know them that sent us food. So we're gonna have to figure that out and do a very big, new Thanksgiving tradition. And this time, we nail it. And those folks who caused the problem. Now, how's about it? But it's starting a revolution. Yes, at the stores, everywhere, now we can start continuing to build that canopy and meditate on how people who didn't have access to this kind of quality of not only chicken, but partnership with farmers and be part of an actual system while they're just going to the store to buy the chicken, but there's no longer just a transaction. Now they are part of a system. And that story motivates me as a consumer on the one end, and I know there's now a whole new revolution out there of people who just don't want to be pawns in a system of extraction anymore. If we don't deliver all the way through, we can't talk about change. And that's why we have gone all the way through. And then, of course, going out there and getting everybody rolled up and excited about doing these things as much as possible. So yes, system-level organizing is where that canopy and that collective change actually materializes. And we have been seeing maybe the solidarity economy idea was still embryonic in that context, but it is still part of that organizing. And now as we go further, and especially after this conference, I hope that we're going back with a more grounded sense that we cannot wait, that we ran out of time, that we must go and do the things we have to do. It doesn't matter what it takes. And honestly, at this point, I don't think I get anxious a lot about this, but lately it has been hard not to. Especially when we don't see the system as a whole reacting fast enough to the speed at which this shadow is just coming over us. And so I invite you to not be comfortable, to engage that other 95% of your intellectual capacity and to find out what else it is that you can do so that we can start this revolution. And it starts right there. That's all you have to do is go talk to the neighbor, talk to the others, and it will start coming. And then, of course, let's stay in touch so that we keep the organizing and all of that going, because we do have a lot of power. So growing grains, aggregating process, and distribution, now that is part of this canopy as well. These grains are critical for the chicken. We also have ancestral grains. Rita's here, who's been working with Walter Goldstein on this high lysine corn that we can start bringing back into this, and now restoring ancestral seeds. That's the canopy of change we want to see. When we start bringing those ancestral seeds and kicking out the GMOs and all of that, then organic means something completely different, because it's not just about chemicals, it's about our natural organic capacity to do all of these things without the poisons and the production of the system. There is plenty of systems now that are being invented so that we can do grains responsibly. They don't have to be monocultures. So this is one of our dreams. When we start imagining stuff, we really go like, okay, let's make it as big as possible, and then let's go and see where we start. We did that with a poultry system. To give you an idea, this is what our dream was. 5% of the market share in the country, that's 331 or so million chickens, because that is precisely 20 chickens per individual per capita that the USDA says we consume. Okay, if you take that, it will take 1 million farmers with around 6 to 8 production units each of our production units that we have engineered, give or take. And it will take around 6 employees per farm, 6 other people associated with that farm, for a total impact of 7 million people to create that industry at $7.5 billion industry sector within the poultry system, and 3.5 million acres to produce all the grain and raise all the chicken. I was asked, what would it take to feed the whole world with our system? And so I did the math, and I calculated that between Minnesota and Iowa, there is about 50 to 55 million acres right now in production. And I figured it would take Minnesota and about a quarter of Iowa to feed all the chicken to the whole world, restore ecosystems, water systems, and all of that, and do it with not even breaking a sweat, at least in the mind. So, say we can't do this, right? I hope you are not, because it is not true. But we have been colonized to the point that our minds can no longer comprehend that we can do this. And so we stall and get paralyzed. And we are told to have more realistic mission statements. So, Makoche Agriculture Services, the Good Oak folks didn't respond. We asked the Good Oak if they wanted us to list them, so I'm just going to mention them. But in Kansas, there's a group called Good Oak, the Center for Regenerative Agriculture, and we are partnering with them too. But Makoche Agricultural Services is out of the Pine Ridge Reservation, and they are now, in their way, growing really fast in relationship to deploying this system as well. What does that mean? That canopy of change then generates the ability for the Tree Ranch brand to expand its ownership and governance, bring in larger scale population engagement. Since we already have the organizing structures, now we can potentially dream of launching the Great Lakes Regenerative Agriculture Council and create an upper level governing system that then starts to codify territorial management, no longer farm level. That is what we call organizing, right? So, Makoche is critical. But those regions are also codified to be manageable. Just like I can't manage 12 farms or 115 that bring chickens at the processing facility, I got to concentrate on the farm where I live. And yet, collectively, we can have this large impact. Stacyville is our epicenter because that is where we decide how far the chickens are going to be transported from. And so we can now dream of this region. We calculated 10 million chickens per region, and if we deploy 10 regions, we can have up to 100 million chickens, and this is where Makoche Ag and all these other partners come in. So we don't have to be the ones loaded with it, just like a farmer won't be loaded with the production for a region either. So scientists have been involved now. Now, this is something that I want to clarify it back again. It's a meditation. But it is a meditation with a purpose, a meditation with the purpose of unlocking all of that other synapses and that potential that we carry with us, that we bring to these conferences, and yet we go back and we can figure out what it is that we are supposed to do. So as we meditate on life, our purpose, our identity, I also wanted to make sure that we meditate on those things that are real, practical, that you can touch and do. This is Beth Fisher and John Beck taking samples. Well, they are measuring electroconductivity. I tell them it's water filtration, folks. It's how the water moves in the soil, right? And then biodiversity. So we are part of the 1,000 farm initiative of Ecstasis Foundation out of Kansas. And so now we get to collect all this beautiful data and measure what's happening out there. Soil health. measuring, literally counting bugs and microbes, and seeing how much life are we supporting as a foundation of this, of figuring out how much is this land going to be producing. And of course, the whole farm system, and this is our family farm, this is Salvatierra Farms. That pond wasn't there, by the way. It's there because I rented a very large machine to do the excavations for the coops, and then I still had another day in the rental agreement, so I started digging. And about 11 p.m., my wife comes out with a sandwich. You must eat. Because I didn't want to eat, drink, or anything, because, man, it's fun digging. So now we have the 10,001st lake. Social change. Social change, what is it? It's when people feel empowered and feel that they can do something and get engaged and go start doing things. That really is what social change comes down to. And it starts right here, just believing that, yes, you can graduate from the School of Agriculture. I don't know which one is yours, but think about it. So systems change, this is how we then bring it all together into that concept of how the system may change. And then we go into this space where all of this change, all of these words, all of this meditation doesn't go anywhere until we reevaluate who we truly are and what it is that we are here to do. We're indigenous creatures of the earth. We were built, we were grown out of the belly of the earth, made of her elements. We are but an expression of her energy, and it's a beautiful one. But so is every other living system that we must respect and that we are directly connected and depend on. Their health is reflected in our health. The health of the earth is the health of our bodies. And so as we do that, this identity is critical. So as you go and start this conference and start to think about everything you will hear and bring home that you will practice, remember, indigenize your ways, decolonize your mind, celebrate abundance so we may grow this canopy of change. If you farm, be a farmer no more, be a producer no more, be a steward of energy transformation, and you will see miracles happen in front of you. If you engage with money, be an extractor no more. Build collective wealth, be a partner, so we may all take our part and have what we need. Work for justice and equality, but be a savior no more. Be an insurgent in your own colonized spaces and bring them to the collective so we may expand that canopy of change. If you buy food, be a consumer no more. Be a steward of your body, your mind, and your spirit, and you will choose very differently what you buy at the store. And when your dollar doesn't go to the extractive system, it will go to regenerate. And I hope you buy the chicken, of course, but it was going so calm and meditative, right? Until I grow the canopy of collective change. And as you go and do this, I am thankful to be here. Really appreciate Marbleseed for the opportunity. I can't say how much I actually enjoy every morning because we know this awesome team is going to make something happen every day. And even with the difficulties, we always know that we are reborn every day and we get to redecide what we're going to do and we get to re-engage. So, gracias. Miigwech. Thank you. Maltiosh. Dankeschön. Now go and start a revolution. Thanks.
Thank you, Rahi, and for providing the metaphor of chicken is how we're going to get it done. So thank you also to all of our sponsors. You saw them up here behind me as we started. Please visit the exhibit hall. People love to see you. They are not open right now, but what is open is the bar over there. So definitely stay, mingle, chat with some of the folks that you've heard from this evening. And also, the research forum this year is just down the hall up here. So be sure to chat with the folks there. You can vote for which research project is most meaningful to you. So be sure to engage with those folks that are doing the work of helping us figure out how to farm better. And then tomorrow morning we start at 9. So I will see you all tomorrow morning. And thank you so much.